Okay, mindfulness. So MindFulGym program is based on the principles of mindfulness. And mindfulness now is a very popular practice, very popular self-help method for stress reduction and wellness. There are hundreds of self-help books related to mindfulness. There's the Mindfulness for Dummies, Mindfulness for Idiots, and lots of other books related to mindfulness. So now it's very popular. Where does this come from? Okay, the mindfulness teaching actually comes from various spiritual traditions. It comes from various spiritual traditions, in particular Buddhism. But not only restricted to Buddhism, it's also found in the traditional Christianity in the form of contemplation. Is found in certain sects of Islam, a sect called Sufism. Of course, it's found in Hinduism as well. So the origin is from spiritual tradition. Mindfulness, although very popular these days, it is not new. It has been there for hundreds of years, but in the form of spiritual tradition, especially Buddhism. So those days, when people want to learn mindfulness, it has to be in the form of spiritual tradition. People have to go to learn from the monks and nuns. People have to learn from the ashram. People have to learn from the sages who live in the mountain or in cave. Yeah, that's the origin. That is the root. Then how did mindfulness become so popular? Okay, mindfulness became very popular due to this person by the name Dr. John Kabat-Zinn. So we consider him as the father of modern mindfulness. Why is he called the father of modern mindfulness? It's because he's the first person who introduced circular mindfulness. Circular mindfulness means non-religious, non-spiritual, no prayers, no rites and rituals. And actually, Dr. John Kabat-Zinn invented the first circular mindfulness program in the world, known as the MBSR, also known as the Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction Program, or in short, is MBSR. He actually started this program in 1970s, and he's actually a professor in the University of Massachusetts Medical School, US. So this movement was started in the US, and he first used mindfulness MBSR to help his patients who are suffering from physical conditions like chronic pain and psoriasis. That's how the circular mindfulness movement started in the form of MBSR by Dr. John Kabat-Zinn for physical disorders. So one of the classes that he started, MBSR, he started one of the early classes. It was of people suffering from psoriasis. Psoriasis is actually a very stubborn skin. It means very stubborn. Now means cow. Pei means cow skin. Basically, it means that it's a very stubborn skin condition. And it's found that those participants who attended the 8-week MBSR program, the skin condition actually cleared 3 times faster compared to the usual treatment. And since the 1970s, MBSR by Dr. John Kabat-Zinn, there has been numerous scientific research, lots and lots of scientific papers to support the effectiveness of mindfulness practice for reducing stress, anxiety, and depression. For your information, there's actually a mindfulness journal, a scientific mindfulness journal dedicated for scientific publications on mindfulness. So there have been lots and lots of scientific research. So I'd like to bring you through just to highlight a few of the scientific studies. No time to go through all, just to highlight to you a few. Okay, one of the interesting scientific studies is on the effect of mindfulness practice on brain changes, brain changes, has been shown that mindfulness practice associates positive brain changes. And one of the positive brain changes is mindfulness reduces the amygdala activity in the brain. The amygdala in the brain is responsible for anger and so it's been shown that if we practice mindfulness, it can help us to reduce anger, reduce anxiety. Mindfulness practice has also shown to increase the alpha and theta brain wave. And this is important because the alpha and theta brain wave, they are associated with relaxation. Mindfulness practice has also shown to increase the activity of the prefrontal cortex and the anterior cingulate cortex activity in the brain. And these are the brain structures which are involved in attention training. So this explains why mindfulness training improves attention. Okay, this is a scientific review on the mindfulness practice. Shown that mindfulness practice can help to reduce anxiety, reduce depression, and reduce stress. That was the earlier study. There's another one, another review. This was done a little bit later. This was in 2015. Again, it's been shown that mindfulness training in the form of mindfulness-based stress reduction and mindfulness-based cognitive therapy. And these mindfulness-based therapies have been shown to alleviate symptoms, both mental and physical, in the adjunct treatment of cancer, cardiovascular disease, chronic pain, depression, anxiety disorder, and the prevention in healthy adults and children. So there are lots of scientific studies. One more recent, this study came out quite recent in just 2018, another scientific review. It shows that mindfulness practice, mindfulness intervention are useful for psychiatric disorders. And the authors of this scientific report, they show that the most consistent evidence for mindfulness-based intervention was seen for people with depression, pain, smoking, and addiction. Yeah. So lots and lots of scientific studies. Yeah. So I'm not sure why you sign up for this program. I'm sure you have a reason, and these are the possible benefits that you can gain from the mindfulness training. Okay, so the benefits you can get are improved productivity and creativity, greater concentration and memory, better sleep and ability to relax, relief from stress-related bodily symptoms like headache, gastric pain, enhance mood and positive emotion, and to improve interpersonal relationships. All these are supported by scientific studies, also supported by my own personal practice, and also my clinical experience. However, I would like to highlight, although there are a lot of studies to show that mindfulness practice is good, it's only good if we practice. So it's very important to ensure that we practice. So we have designed this program so that it's practical. So in the part 2 of this afternoon session, we will show you the practice. It's important to practice on a daily basis, share your experience, ask questions. If you have any doubts, please clarify your doubts, ask questions, we discuss. And this is the only way that we ensure that we benefit from the mindfulness practice. One very important reminder, I know some of you are on treatment for medical and mental health conditions. Very important reminder, please do not stop your medications if you're on treatment for any medical or mental health conditions. I'm a doctor myself, I'm a psychiatrist. When we say mindfulness practice is good, it doesn't mean we abandon the medication. In fact, studies have shown that for the best effect comes from combinations of mindfulness practice plus counseling therapy plus medication. Then we can have the maximum effect. So please don't go home, or please don't leave this class with with the wrong impression that I'm trying to replace some medication. No. The purpose of mindfulness training is to complement your treatment, is not to replace your treatment. Okay, I have talked about the history and benefits of mindfulness. Let's recap a little bit. Historically, I mentioned mindfulness comes from spiritual tradition. It's been there for hundreds of years in various spiritual tradition, especially Buddhism. That it brought into the secular world by Dr. John Kabat-Zinn, a professor of medicine from the University of Massachusetts Medical School, in the form of MBSR, which was initially found to be helpful for people with chronic pain and psoriasis. Then later, there's a lots and lots of scientific studies. And for your information, the MindfulGym program that you're attending now is actually adapted from the MBSR program, but adapted and scientifically tested in the local population. So some of you, I think one of the commonly asked questions, like, what's the difference between MBSR by Dr. John Kabat-Zinn and the MindfulGym program that I'm running? So the difference is MindfulGym is Buatan Malaysia. It's adapted from the MBSR, adapted and scientifically tested in the local population. And so far, we have more than 10 scientific studies to show that MindfulGym is useful for the local population to reduce stress, anxiety, and depression. Okay. In terms of benefits, I reviewed lots and lots of scientific studies. Now the more important part, we'll go on the definition. So what is mindfulness? We talk about the history, we talk about benefits. Let's dive into the definition. Remember just now I said that mindfulness comes from various spiritual tradition, especially in Buddhism. Okay, in Buddhism, the word for mindfulness is sati. The language used, in Buddhism, the original language is called the Pali language. So this is a Pali word of sati, which is the original word in Pali used to describe mindfulness. So this comes from the Wikipedia. Yeah, sati has many translations, and one of the most common translation in English is mindfulness. So sati is mindfulness. Sati in Pali, in the Buddhist tradition, is mindfulness. What is it called in Chinese? Okay, in Chinese, if you do a Google translation, mindfulness is actually 正念. Yeah, so that is Chinese word. Remember this word 念. Later we're going to have a slide which we're going to elaborate more on that. Yeah. How about in Malay, in Bahasa Melayu? We are in Malaysia, in Bahasa Melayu. What do you think is the word? What is the translation for mindfulness? Yeah. This is a translation for mindfulness. The Malay word for mindfulness is Ketarasedar. In Chinese is 正念. In Pali is sati. So this is the term used by IKIM. Do you know what is IKIM? IKIM is the Institute for Kefahaman Islam Malaysia. As I shared with you earlier, mindfulness these days is very, very popular. IKIM, Institute for Kefahaman Islam Malaysia, is also running talks and seminars on and off on mindfulness from a Muslim perspective. Let's see what does the dictionary say about mindfulness. Okay, if you do a search in the dictionary, the online Oxford and Cambridge, the first definition is say the quality or state of being conscious or aware of something. So I would like to highlight to you in the general English usage, the word mindfulness, the meaning is a bit different from the meaning of mindfulness as in mindfulness therapy or mindfulness program. In our daily usage, we use the word mindfulness to mean be aware. Be aware or be conscious. For example, you hear people say be mindful of your steps, be mindful that they don't hit your head, or be mindful of the economy, be mindful of the political situation. That is a general usage of the word mindfulness. However, in the MBSR, in MindFulGym, the meaning is more specific. This is a very important point. The meaning of mindfulness in MBSR, MindFulGym is a bit more specific. Okay, so let's zoom into the real definition of mindfulness. All those are just historical definition. Let's zoom into the actual definition as used in the MBSR program and in the MindFulGym program. Yeah, so I will show you the one used in the MBSR program, the one pioneered by Dr. John Kabat-Zinn. Afterward, I will show you the MindFulGym version. Yeah, so Dr. John Kabat-Zinn defines mindfulness as paying attention in a particular way on purpose in the present moment and non-judgmentally. So this is the definition by Dr. John Kabat-Zinn, the father of modern mindfulness in the MBSR program. Yeah. In the MindFulGym program, we don't follow this definition. I've done some modification, but it's still related, but I've done some modification. The next slide, you will see the definitions of mindfulness as in the MindFulGym program. Okay, so this is the definitions of mindfulness in the MindFulGym program. Okay, so this is a very, very, very important slide. Yeah, I'm going to read to you the definition of mindfulness and try to remember this definition by heart, because after this we're going to share with you many MindFulGym exercises, and all the exercises are based on the principles of mindfulness as defined in this slide. Okay. To pay attention to the present moment with an attitude of kindness, a beginner's mind, and wisdom. Yeah. In the actual group in-person MindFulGym program, I will ask all participants to remember this definition by heart, and will ask our test each participant to see whether they can remember or not. But in Zoom, it's a bit difficult to do that. So I'll trust you will try your best to remember this definition. Yeah. Okay. If you don't understand the meaning, it's okay. I will help you to go through line by line and word by word. Okay. So mindfulness is paying attention. Mindfulness is an attention training. Mindfulness is not making the mind blank. A lot of people have this wrong understanding of mindfulness. They think mindfulness is making the mind blank. This is not true. Mindfulness is a very active process of paying attention. So mindfulness is paying attention. It's related to something that we went through when we were in school days. I still remember during our school days, teachers always say, pay attention, pay attention, pay attention, pay attention. It's the same word. So mindfulness is paying attention. The only difference is in school, teachers always tell us to pay attention, but teachers don't really spend time teaching us how to pay attention. But in the MindFulGym program, we've shared with you many strategies, many methods and ways to sharpen our attention. So far, so good. So mindfulness is attention training. Mindfulness is paying attention, and MindFulGym teaches us on how to pay attention. Pay attention to what, you may say? Right? Is it pay attention to the music, pay attention to YouTube video? What do we pay attention to? If you still remember the definition, is basically paying attention to the present moment or now. That's why you see the earlier definition is paying attention to the present moment, the now. Okay, you look at this Chinese character. a Chinese character of nian, zhen nian, you can actually divide these two characters. There are two sub-characters. So the top part means now, and the bottom part means the heart, or in Chinese is Xing, the heart. Okay, so this is a very, very nice way to remind us that mindfulness is not just paying attention, it's paying attention in the now, in the present moment. Okay, I hope so far so good. If you have questions, keep your questions. I'm sure some of you have questions. Keep it for the Q&A sessions so that we can have a better understanding later when you ask questions. So mindfulness is paying attention in the present moment. In the MindfulGym class, the actual class, I will randomly ask a participant and going to ask, what is the time now? Then you look at the clock. So it is 3:10 now. Okay. So in the MindfulGym class, whenever I ask about the time now, it's actually a trick question. Because the answer to the question of what is the time now, the answer is now, the present moment. Now, the present moment is to emphasize that mindfulness is about paying attention in the present moment. Next slide. Okay, let's recap the definition. Mindfulness means remembering to pay attention to the present moment with an attitude of kindness, beginner's mind, and wisdom. Okay, so in MindfulGym, we have these 4 hours. 4 hours, or you can imagine they are like the angels of the MindfulGym program. Because they're angels, because they remind us of the principles of mindfulness. Okay, the first one is our attention. We have gone through that. Mindfulness is paying attention. Okay, but mindfulness is not just attention; it's also a kind attention. Kind attention. So there's a kindness component. Yeah. So we pay attention. The things we pay attention to can be the attention part. The attention can be external attention, something that we hear, something that we see. Those are external, paying attention to something external, or we can pay attention to something internal. Internal are things like our thoughts, our feeling, our emotions, our body sensation. All those are under attention. Yeah. There's not only attention, it's kind attention. For example, we pay attention to our body, we have to pay attention with kindness. With kindness means we care, with gratitude, with respect. And this is very important because sometimes when people pay attention, it's the wrong type of attention. It's not a kind attention. For instance, a lot of people when they pay attention to the faults. They find faults with life. They find faults and problems with themselves. Is that attention? Well, there's attention, but it's not a kind attention. Then the third part of definition is not just attention, it's beginner's mind attention. Okay, what does beginner's mind attention mean? Okay. Later, I'm going to share with you an exercise called the mindful body stretching. And then after the practice, a beginner's mind attention means we encourage you to go back and practice. And we go back and practice, we encourage you to modify, mix, and match. Beginner means be curious, be playful, be adventurous, to try it out different ways. So when we introduce certain exercise, for example, the mindful body stretching, we don't expect you to follow exactly as the way we teach you in the MindfulGym program. We hope you can go back and try it out, you modify. Modify means we teach it in this way, but we encourage you to modify it, adapt it, modify it. We also encourage you to mix. For example, you may have some basics in Qigong, or you also learn a little bit of yoga. So feel free to mix with the other practice, mix and then match according to your needs. Because not everybody joining the MindfulGym program for the same purpose. Some are joining this program because you cannot sleep. Some are joining this program for stress and anxiety. Some are for depression. And there are various reasons. So feel free to be curious, apply beginner's mind, modify, mix, and match. Okay. And then the last part of the definition is wisdom. Wisdom. Wisdom means understand your condition. As I mentioned later, we join a mindful gym program with different reasons. So we got to understand our condition. For example, even if you are having panic attack, if you are trying to apply mindful gym program or mindfulness practice for panic attack, you have to understand the nature of panic attack. Then you have to understand how you can apply the mindfulness technique in your situation for panic attack. So this is what I mean by wisdom. So it's not just attention, it's wise attention. So you put all together, mindfulness means remembering to pay attention to the present moment, the now, with an attitude of kindness, a beginner's mind, and wisdom. So far, it's still theory. If some of you still find it difficult to understand, it's okay. Later, when we have the exercise, the practical session, it'll be easier for you to understand. Okay. So I have explained to you the definitions of mindfulness. Although I share with you various definition, the one that you really need to remember is the one that we use in the MindFulGym program. The rest are just for you to have a better understanding of the root and also the origin by Kabat-Zinn. But for practical purpose, just remember the last one. Remembering to pay attention to the present moment with kindness, with beginner's mind, and wisdom. Yeah. So as mentioned earlier, MindFulGym. What is MindFulGym? MindFulGym is the Malaysian version of the MBSR. Yeah. So I started the MindFulGym program about 10 years ago, around 2010. I first started this the practice, the class among the UPM medical student. I was previously lecturing in the UPM medical school. I noticed that the medical students were all very stressed out. So that's why I introduced the program. This was about 10 years ago. And since then, I have introduced MindFulGym to various population, various groups of people. For example, I introduced MindFulGym among school teachers, among patients with cancer, among patients with anxiety and depression. Organized MindFulGym among healthcare professionals, among nurses, also in the corporate group as well. I also introduced mindfulness in various organizations. So in the corporate world, people realize when people are very stressed out, actually it reduces their productivity. So it's important to have MindFulGym, mindfulness practice to help staff to reduce stress and increase productivity. Yeah. So this year I have a few invitations. One invitation I have is to run the MindFulGym program among doctors. I'm going to run MindFulGym in Kelantan and Terengganu. I also have one invitation to run the MindFulGym program for counselors.